Very good evening, students. Now, this is a short video on the muscles of mastication. The question is, describe the muscles of mastication under following heads. And this has to be described in the tabular form. The various heads are the origin of the muscle, insertion, no supply, and action. Okay? So I have made the 4 columns, one for origin, insertion, no supply, and action. And on here are the names of the muscles of mastication. Okay. Now if you see these muscles of mastications, they are used in chewing movements, eating. After eating, when we grind our food, this is called as the chewing. Okay, so they are muscles which are used in the chewing movement, and the lower jaw and mandible moves in act of chewing. Okay, so this is in whole of the skull, it is the only mandible which is movable. Rest of the other bones forming the skull, they are immovable bones. Okay, now muscle of mastications are responsible for movements of lower jaw. At which joint? It is at the temporomandibular joint. So the joint at which the mandible will move is the temporomandibular joints, right and left temporomandibular joint. Okay, the main muscles of mastications are temporalis, the number 1. It is temporalis. Sorry, please. It is masseter, lateral pterygoid, and the medial pterygoid. Okay, so these are the 4 muscles of the mastications. Okay, now the temporalis is present in the temporal fossa, which is on the side of the skull. We have learned about the temporal fossa in the norma lateralis, or on the lateral view of the skull, while masseter is present in the face, in the region of the face. Okay, and the remaining 2 muscle means lateral pterygoid and the medial pterygoid. This lateral and medial pterygoid, they are present in the infratemporal region. Okay, in the infratemporal region. So let's come to see the origin, insertion, no supply, and action of the first muscle of mastication, that is temporalis. Okay, now if you see the origin of temporalis, it arises from the temporal fossa and also from the deep surface of the temporal fascia. Okay, temporal fossa and the deep surface of the temporal fascia. What is temporal fascia? It covers the temporalis muscle itself, and from its deep surface also the muscle fiber of temporalis, they take origin. I will show this temporal fossa, I mean to say muscle within or taking origin from the temporal fossa. Okay, with this help of this book. This is Thieme Dissector, the volume 3, and I am the author of this book, and I am thankful to the Thieme for using their diagrams. Let us see here this diagram. You see here, this is the norma lateralis, where you are seeing this temporalis muscle, and this is taking origin from the floor of this temporal fossa, bounded above by the temporal line. This is the temporal line, and you can see that the fibers, they are taking origin from the floor of this fossa. Okay, a large area of the lateral surface of the skull, and then fibers are going deep to this zygomatic arch. The space is present deep to this zygomatic arch to get attached to the coronoid process, This is seen here. The zygomatic arch is cut here, and then these fibers, they are going. These fibers are the vertical, anterior fibers are vertical. As you will go posterior, they become horizontal. So the most posterior fibers, they are horizontal, and most anterior fibers, which are taking origin from temporal fossa, they are vertical. Now this muscle is covered by a strong fascia which is attached onto the I mean to say the superior temporal line, and below it is attached to the upper margin of the zygomatic arch, which is cut here, okay, partly. Okay, so this is called as temporal fascia, and from the undersurface of this temporal fascia, muscle also takes its origin, okay, takes it. So now I hope you have understood the two origins of the temporalis muscle. Let us come to the insertion. And for insertion is on this coronoid process. You are seeing the coronoid process. So insertion is on the coronoid process. You can see extending onto the anterior margin of the coronoid process, going right up to this ramus of the mandible. Then this is attached on the tip, then attached a broad band of the tendon here is going deep to the coronoid process to get attached on its medial surface, which cannot be shown here. So these fibers which are going deep, they are attached on the medial surface of the coronoid process. So this is the strong attachment of the temporalis onto the coronoid process. Its anterior border and on medial surface, as it is written here. The nerve supply is the deep temporal nerves, which are the branches from the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. And I will, after 2 videos, I will teach you about the mandibular nerve. There I will describe this nerve in detail. So just remember that this temporalis muscle is supplied by the deep temporal nerves, which are branches from the anterior division of mandibular nerve. Okay, motor branches. Action of the temporalis is elevation of jaw by the anterior fiber. Let us see. These anterior fibers, when they will contract, they will pull the mandible up. That is elevation of the mandible. And it is also the retraction of the jaw, okay, by posterior fibers. When this mandible is protruded anteriorly, then these posterior fibers, they will bring it back to its anatomical position. What is called as the retraction, because they are horizontal fibers. So they will pull back the muscle. You can see here this and draw just a simple diagram as I have drawn. Head of the mandible, coronoid process, the temporal line, the vertical fibers and horizontal fibers, and its insertion onto the coronoid process. Okay, a very simple diagram. Within a minute you can draw it. Okay, let us go to the second muscle, and that is the masseter muscle. Okay, so we are going to the masseter muscle now. Okay, and masseter muscle, as I said, is present in the face. Okay, so origin of the masseter muscle, it has actually the two parts, a superficial part and a deep part. Okay, the superficial and deep part, they form a strong muscle masseter, which is on the lateral aspect of the ramus of the mandible. Now the superficial part arises from the anterior 2/3 of the zygomatic arch. From anterior 2/3 of the zygomatic arch. Let us first, in this diagram where I have drawn zygomatic arch is here. This is the zygomatic bone. Its lower margin is here. This is the coronoid process, the condylar process, the angle of the mandible, and this is the superficial oblique fibers, which are taking origin from the zygomatic bone and the lower margin of the zygomatic arch. Anteriorly, they are going backwards and downward to get attached onto the lateral surface just above the angle of the mandible, just above the. So this is the superficial part. Let us go to the deep part, and deep part takes its origin from the medial surface of the zygomatic arch. Now this is the zygomatic arch, and from the undersurface, which is the medial surface, the vertical fibers will arise, which will directly go downward to get attached onto the lateral surface of the ramus of the mandible, okay, just above the insertion of the zygomatic, I would say the superficial oblique part, superficial. So these are the both the attachment. Again see this muscle, okay, in the skull here. You can see this is the superficial part where fibers are taking origin from the zygomatic bone, extending up to the lower margin of the zygomatic arch, going downwards and backwards, a strong muscle right onto the posterior margin of the ramus and to the angle of the mandible. And then this is the deep part, that is the vertical fibers going downward, which are taking origin from zygomatic arch, under surface, okay, deep surface of the zygomatic arch, and gaining attachment onto that of the lateral surface of the ramus of mandible. This has been shown here after cutting the zygomatic arch from where the origin was taking place, and here you can see how thick is muscle. The muscle is very thick, masseter, and you can make your masseter muscle and put your fingers onto your masseter muscle just above the angle of the mandible. When you are clenching your teeth, this muscle will become prominent, okay, it will become prominent. Let us come to the nerve supply of this masseter muscle. It is the masseteric nerve, branch of anterior division. In the same way, the temporalis was also supplied by the branch from anterior division of mandibular. So it is also, but the name of the nerves are different. This is the masseteric nerve, that was the deep temporal nerves, okay. Now axon of the deep part where the fibers are vertical. See this diagram. The axon of the deep part where the fibers are vertical, what it will do? It will elevate the jaw. When it will contract, it will elevate the jaw, okay. Elevate means it will pull the jaw upwards, okay. So when jaw is downward, that means when mouth is open, then it will help to close the mouth. It will close the mouth, okay. So it is elevator, elevator of the jaw, right? Just similar to that of the anteriormost fibers of the temporalis. Then the superficial, which are having the oblique running fibers, downwards and backward fibers, when it will contract, it will pull the mandible forward, okay, it will pull, okay, and this action is called as protraction. When you are just pulling your mandible forward, okay, it goes anteriorly, that is the protraction. And why this protraction movement is possible, okay, and this is just opposite to that of the retraction movement of the temporalis muscle. This is possible, the protraction, because fibers are running downwards and backwards, so this will pull the mandible upwards and forwards, upwards and forward, okay, because the direction gives you the idea about the direction of the movements, okay, direction of the movement, okay. This completes the second muscle, the masseter. Let us come to the third muscle, and that is called as the, let us take first the lateral pterygoid, because it is superficial than that of the medial. So I will teach you first the lateral pterygoid, and then we'll go to that of the medial pterygoid muscle. Now lateral pterygoid has two heads, an upper head and the lower head, okay. These heads are upper head, not superficial and deep, okay, just like that of the masseter, and we will see in medial also, okay. It has an upper head and the lower head. Upper head arises from the infratemporal crest, and from the under surface of the greater wing of the sphenoid, okay, where it is forming the roof of the infratemporal fossa. So this is from the infratemporal crest. And infratemporal crest, let me show you the area from where, okay, I'm just finding the, if I can get a better diagram to show you. Okay, now in this diagram, first you understand, this is the lateral pterygoid plate, this is the maxilla, this is the molar teeth attached to the maxilla, this is the head of the mandible, then the intra-articular disc is there, capsule of the temporomandibular joint. This is the upper head and this is the lower head. Upper head takes origin from that of the infratemporal crest, okay. There is a line here, okay, on the greater wing of the sphenoid, and from it also takes origin from the undersurface of the greater wing of the sphenoid. And then these fibers, they run backwards and little downwards, okay, backwards and downward. In this book I can show you here, this is the area of the infratemporal. We have cut the temporalis muscle. Masseter is already gone here, and we are deep inside the infratemporal fossa. You can see here this belly. This is the upper head of the lateral pterygoid, and this is the lower head of the lateral pterygoid muscle, which will take origin from the lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid. But this takes origin from the undersurface of the greater wing of the sphenoid as well as the infratemporal crest. Please refer to the osteology where is the infratemporal crest is present. And these fibers of the upper head, let us see their insertion. They will go and attach to the pterygoid fovea, okay, articular capsule and disc of the temporomandibular joint. Okay, just let me correct this. Spelling is wrong here. Let me correct. Pterygoid fovea will be the one fibers which are the lower head fibers, but the upper fibers, they will go to the articular capsule, and through the articular capsule they will get attachment to that of the intra-articular disc. See, this fibrocartilaginous intra-articular disc is there in the temporomandibular joint, and the upper head, it is going and getting attachment to the capsule of the TM joint, and through the capsule it is also attached to the anterior margin of the intra-articular disc, okay. Let us come to the origin of the lower head and its insertion from the lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid plate, okay. I hope that you remember the lateral pterygoid plate, and from the lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid plate, this muscle is taking origin, and then the fibers are running backwards, okay, and upward, okay, from lateral surface of lateral pterygoid plate, and fibers then run backwards and upward to get attached onto the fovea. Okay, this is a depression in the anterior aspect of the knee, just where the capsule is attached. See these fibers? They are going backward, and they will go slightly at a higher level because the neck of the mandible fovea is located at a higher level than that of the lateral pterygoid plate. This is the lateral pterygoid plate. Pterygomaxillary fissure is here because this is posterior surface of the maxilla is shown here. So this will attach here, insertion into the pterygoid fovea. Now let us see the nerve supply. Again the anterior division of the mandibular nerve. Okay, now to the lateral pterygoid. Let us come to the axon. Okay, when a single muscle will contract, that means on one side when lateral pterygoid will contract, the head is drawn forward and chin is tilted to the opposite side. Chin is tilted to the opposite side. These are two actions when a single muscle is acting. Now, with this diagram, you can understand very well that when the muscle will contract, it will pull the articular capsule, it will pull the disc forward, and it will also pull the head of. Let us see the action of lateral pterygoid again. If the upper head and the lower head, when they will contract singly, that means only on one side, then this head is drawn forward and the chin will go, or it will be tilted to the opposite side. That means that side of the mandible, that is head, will go along with the disc and capsule will be pulled forward, and then the chin will tilt to the opposite side because of the rotation of the head of the mandible on the opposite temporomandibular joint. Now why it will be tilted to the opposite side? Let us see here. Now suppose this is the median plane, this is the head of the mandible, I say for example neck of the mandible, this is the lateral pterygoid plate from where this is taking origin, okay? The lower head is taking origin, and when it will contract, it will try to pull the head of the mandible, neck and capsule and the articular disc not only forward but also medially. And this is the reason why the chin will be tilted to that of the opposite side. But in case when both the muscles will contract together, that means of right side and left side lateral tride will contract together, then the head, the disc will be drawn forward, okay, and on the articular, and head will be drawn on both the side on articular tubercle. And since an articular tubercle is a bump, so that the mouth will open, that means the chin will go downward. So in the movement of the lateral pterygoid, when both the muscles are contracting together, the mandible is protracted, that means it moves forward. But since both the heads on right and left side, they are now on the articular tubercle, which will push the mandible down, and hence the mouth will open. So thus, when the lateral pterygoid of both sides will contract together, it is the protraction of the mandible with the opening of the mouth, is there. Let us come to the last muscle of the mastication, and that is the medial pterygoid muscle. And in this medial pterygoid muscle, we will see that it will have the two head, superficial and deep head. The superficial head arises from the maxillary tuberosity, which lies at the junction of the posterior surface of maxilla, body of the maxilla, and the pterygoid plates, medial and lateral. So that is called as maxillary tuberosity, and superficial head will take origin from there, and then these fibers will run downwards and backwards, okay? And the deep head will take origin from the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid. Remember that the lateral surface was giving origin to the lateral pterygoid. This is the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate, which will give origin to the medial pterygoid, okay? And it is the deep head, okay? Now these two head, the superficial and the deep head, I will show you here, okay? Now we have removed in this diagram also the lateral pterygoid muscle. So we are in a deeper plane in the infratemporal fossa. You can see this is the posterior surface of the body of the maxilla. Here is the lateral pterygoid plate, okay? And this is the from under surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. This is the deep head is taking origin, which is quite broad, and from the maxillary tuberosity, this is a narrow superficial head is taking origin, and both head will go to insert onto the, see here in this diagram, see this is that of the medial pterygoid, its deep head, and this is that from maxillary tuberosity is the superficial head. This is the lateral pterygoid plate, and we can see that the fibers, they are coming from the under surface or the medial surface of this lateral pterygoid plate, and this muscle will go to get attachment onto the medial surface of the ramus of the mandible above the angle of the mandible, above that. You can see here also in this diagram, you can see here, this is the maxillary tuberosity, where the superficial, and from the under surface of this lateral pterygoid plate, this is the deep head is taking, and they will attach or insert onto the medial surface of the ramus just above the angle of the mandible, okay? Now supply. The now supply of these muscles are the anterior division of the mandibular nerve, okay? And then let us see the action. Okay, when a single medial pterygoid is acting, okay, just a little, disturbance was here. Okay, the nerve supply is by the main trunk of the mandibular nerve, not by the anterior division. Okay, I just read from the lateral pterygoid. Okay, column. So this is by the main trunk of the mandibular nerve, and if we see the action, then medial pterygoid causes the protrusion, okay, or forward movement and the elevation of the mandible. Why elevation of the mandible? Because here the fibers are going downwards and backwards. So it will, when contract, it will pull the mandible upwards, okay, it will pull the, so that it will help in the closure of the mouth, okay, and the protraction, because they are going from anterior to posterior side, okay, anterior to, so they will pull the mandible forward, as well as it is the closures. That means both the medial and lateral pterygoid, they elevate, they protrude the mandible, but the medial pterygoid is for the elevation of mandible, means closure, while the lateral pterygoid is for the depression of the mandible, that is for the opening of the mouth. I will suggest you that you draw this diagram like this, okay, and see the direction, and then try to understand the movement, and also try to understand that origin, if it is medial, then insertion is lateral, so it will move the mandible head if it is contracting on one side toward, and will tilt the jaw. This completes the description of the muscles of mastication, okay, and these muscles are important, okay, for the masticatory movement. Thank you very much for watching this video.